Am I forgetting anything, Pat?
Nope.
You sure?
Nope.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Repeater. My name is Evan.
And I'm Pat.
And today we're recording in a different room here in the training center because the training center is hosting the Satire and Humor Festival, first ever in New York City. It's very, very cool. And we are joined by satire writer, humor writer, and comedian Taylor Garron.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hey.
Thanks for taking a little slice out of your weekend of the festival to join us.
Of course, this is so exciting and a long time coming.
Yeah. You were on our last live show, which was very fun. Listeners will get to hear that soon. It'll kind of drop right after the season. But it's a super fun show where we counted down the top songs of 2009. But that's not what we're here to do today. Today, we're going to talk to Taylor about a song that got her through the last year. That's the theme of this season. And before we kind of flash back to that, we're going to talk about something we've been listening to lately.
So recently, I've been listening to the new Pup album, Morbid Stuff. It is so good. It feels like a distillation of their first two albums. It just turned up to 11. It's so much fun. The guitar solos are great. And there's two songs on there that I really love. There's one called Closure. That's just a very clear and to the point song about needing closure on something bad that's happened.
Sure.
And I relate to that. And then there's another one called Full Blown Meltdown that they played at Mercury Lounge that when they started that song, my brain fell out of my head. It didn't feel like a song that I ever saw them playing, but now it's the only thing I can think about. And it sounds like a full-blown meltdown and a little bit like Rage Against the Machine. So it's a lot of fun.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I'm excited for that album. I just pre-ordered it yesterday, actually. Yeah. I've been listening to, there's two tracks that stand out. One is the new Lizzo Missy Elliott collab.
Oh my God,
Tempo,
masterpiece.
Which is really... I mean, talk about a current legend, and a legend from probably like when we were kids.
Totally.
So very cool. It just rules. I don't know. There's not much to say about it other than like if you like either of those artists, you're gonna love that song.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the other one is I stumbled upon. I'd never listened to this band Potty Mouth before, although I hear they're pretty popular. But they have a song called Massachusetts, and it was like I was listening to the album. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, a song about my home state. I was like, sweet as hell. And it's a good tune. It's a rocker.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. Don't hear a lot of like mass oriented rock out there these days.
Totally. Went to school with Potty Mouth, fun fact.
Oh, really?
Well, they were, when I was in college in Western Mass, they were like coming up on the scene in Western Mass. So I saw them in like their early days, not to brag.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you're also a Massachusetts native.
I am. Right? I'm also from, where are you from?
I'm from Winchester.
Oh, we've talked about this, I think.
Yeah.
I'm from beautiful historic New Bedford.
New Bedford,
Massachusetts. It's fishing town.
The other side of Boston.
Yeah. People don't realize that there are more cities in Massachusetts than just Boston, but in fact there are hundreds.
Oh yeah, for real.
Hundreds. Let's see. I've kind of regressed recently. I feel like I hit like a wall when it comes to like mid-February in terms of like I'm sad and I need just to like get through the rest of the winter. So I like listen to music that makes me feel happy and not necessarily like go out of my way to find new stuff. So I've been listening to a lot of MF Doom because it's just classic. I think Rhymes Like Dimes is a perfect song.
Yeah.
It's like a masterpiece. What else have I been listening to? I guess a lot of that. Oh, I also am rediscovering Blind Melon's self-titled album.
Oh yeah.
That was released the year I was born, but No Rain is my favorite song of all time. That's a fun thing.
Oh, wow.
But I have been listening to that a lot again. And I think people maybe know that one very popular song by them, but like haven't really listened to any other stuff by them. And it's actually like very grungy and like dirty and like sad.
Yeah, the other like kind of light song, is it from that album? Is that Change? Is on
Yeah,
there
that's from that one too.
That's like an acoustic one.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah. I always remember liking that song when I was younger too.
Totally. Sleepy House is on there too, and that's like a kind of a light one, but everything else is just like, my friends have betrayed me. Like, I'm an addict. So like, what?
Yeah.
You know, like.
I mean, that was the vibe back then. Like,
Totally.
If you were a rock band, it's like stuff had to be grungy kind
Absolutely.
of, or else you were really like an outlier.
Yeah.
And a weirdo.
The cafe I work at, I was listening to that album the other day, and my boss came in and was like, what is this like rock music that you're listening to? Which is always a signal for I need to change the music into something that's like more appropriate. But so far, MF Doom and Blind Melon are two things that I cannot listen to while I'm baristaing.
Damn.
Yeah.
Unfair.
It's
Absolutely
fine.
unfair.
I'm over it.
That's not some new music, but or music we're listening to currently.
Sure.
Not new, but we're here to talk about some music from the past year, a song from the past year. So we're going to kind of set the stage, as we've been doing all season, with a couple sort of current events from the past year. Pat, do you want to kick us off with one of them?
Sure. This year we found out that the L train would actually not being shut down. Being shut down for repairs for, what was it, like 8 months, 12 months?
Oh, the original shutdown of it was going to be a full year and a half.
Yeah,
right?
that was almost 2 years. Yeah.
Well, I don't live in Brooklyn, so I didn't pay that much attention.
That happened like pretty recently, a month ago. They announced that they weren't going to shut down the L train full time. And this is after years of like debate about what's going on with the L train, because originally there were multiple proposals about would they partially close it for 3 years, or would they do a full closure for a year and a half? Would 14th Street become, or is it Houston? Would Houston become like this buses only pedestrian wonderland when you come over the bridge, so that people, I mean, there have been like so many things.
Yeah.
People like moved out of like places that like neighborhoods that are on the L train to like prevent this.
People gave up like crazy good real estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
To not be a part of this. And now they're all being told that it's
just like
whoops. Fine. Like, we're going to close stuff on weekends and nights, like every other train in New York. You know?
The diagram that they released about the L train tunnel to show how they were going to fix it basically looked like they were just kind of putting Band-Aids on the walls.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
that's very New York, though. I feel
it's like oh yeah, for sure. It's like they're building like a shelf. That's what they're doing basically. And they're also leaving, because like the difference too is knocking out this whole previous infrastructure and replacing it. And now what they're doing is like leaving that old infrastructure for the most part like, there and putting just like other stuff in the tunnel.
Yeah. Well, it's fine because the subway is good and runs effectively
all the time.
And can handle all of these people.
Absolutely.
So
that's what it was specifically designed for in the 1800s. The thing that bothers me the most about it, and I'm going to get political here, y'all, sorry, is that they're like, it's going to operate during the day, so people that work 9 to 5 jobs can like get to work and like get back home. We're just going to close nights and weekends so that poor people who work overnight places or like work in the service industry like early in the morning or very late at night or on the weekends have to struggle even more than they already do because you're working a service job. But like at least like the really wealthy people that like, you know, are creative directors that live in Williamsburg and like their giant lofts are like going to be fine and unaffected.
Yeah, and also like it's just it's the part of the discussion is not like, well, where does the L train like go?
Yeah.
Where does it end up? Well, it ends up in Canarsie. Like, it does not end up in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the people that train serves are from like a whole diverse set of backgrounds and jobs and all that type of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. But consider, consider all like the software engineers who are going to be affected. Consider all the people who work at Facebook. I don't know. It's just like really sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that a lot of people had an issue with the potential for Amazon coming in was, the subway was going to become overcrowded, but also thinking about the communities that were off the 7 train and, you know, thinking about people that don't work 9 to 5, so people that work overnight. And, you know, there are other cities that do shut their subways down at night too, in order to do maintenance. But New York's not set up in a way that people can safely or effectively get somewhere in the middle of the night.
Absolutely not.
No. And it's the same, it's like part of the same people that, you know, demand that the trains work for them and be fixed and stuff like that are the same people that like really want to order takeout at 3 a.m.
Totally.
And it's like, well, dude, who do you think is making that and bringing it? It's like other cities like close at night for repairs because their cities kind of stop operating.
Yeah.
People in there don't demand that everything be available all the time, which is what we do in New York.
Those are the same people that don't tip those delivery people.
Yeah.
Well, that was late.
Yeah.
It was pouring rain outside, so I didn't really feel like walking to the store and getting my own sandwich. But this one was late because you rode a bike in the pouring rain.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
This is a hellscape we live in, but...
Yeah. I get, the thing is, I think we originally thought like this was like being presented as good news. It's like we've just like unloaded on the MTA. We're like, I guess it's good that it's not shutting down. I don't know.
Sure.
Remains to be seen.
Some businesses will survive. Because that's the other thing. Like when a lot of the argument against it was that what was going to happen to all those businesses that are off the L.
Yeah.
All that foot traffic that they had.
Totally.
So,
and they're already shutting down. Like there are plenty of, like there are like a billion bars that have been there since like the dawn of time that have closed down. And like, I don't know. It's like really messed up. I guess, those are bars that are open like all day starting at like 10 a.m. Right. So it's just like the lushes who can't get their like 10 a.m. cocktail.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get a day off and you want, I don't know.
Sure.
Sorry, this is getting a little personal.
Yeah. Just to end, I guess, on a lighter note, because something that's happened in Astoria is, they've closed down subway stops to make them more accessible for wheelchairs and things like that, which is awesome.
Totally.
But one stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one stop.
I'll just clarify.
It is one stop, which is also sad, and let's yell at the MTA for that because it's ridiculous how few and far between the wheelchair accessible subway platforms are. But another thing that I've noticed happening is for the stops that are closed, communities. So in Astoria, there's been like small business crawls or small business Saturdays where it's encouraging people to go to these smaller stores. So I don't know. One takeaway from this is support the community you live in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So even if your subway does get shut down because the MTA is bad at everything they do, that business hopefully doesn't go away.
Keep going.
Yeah, totally. Stop. You don't have to go buy your groceries in Manhattan to bring them back to your borough.
It's actually amazing that people even do that.
People do it. That's wild to me, but they do it. Another piece of news from last year that is objectively sad is that we lost Aretha Franklin to the heavens above. Which, as kind of like Pat and I have been talking about, is, we're kind of in this era of celebrity death, I think, because we've sort of reached, I don't know, one of the first big periods where like huge celebrities of a large media age are like dying for the first time, and everyone can like see their image everywhere and has grown up watching their things and listening to them and all that stuff. So it seems to be like blow after blow after blow, but yeah, certainly Aretha is one that I think the music world feels heavily.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Her funeral was beautiful.
Oh, did you like watch parts of it? I don't think I saw anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember where they were broadcasting it, but like they broadcast a lot of the speeches and performances, and it was just really lovely.
I don't think she would have wanted anything less extravagant than that either. She like absolutely deserved it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I once I like ended up seeing her at one of these weird, Massachusetts has one of these, and I'm trying to think of what it's called. Is it Tanglewood?
Yeah.
In Western Mass, where it's like one of these venues that's outdoors, kind of sprawling. Most people go because they just like buy tickets for the season. It's this very like kind of wealthy thing.
I was going to say, it's in like Great Barrington, Mass, which is like...
I went to like the equivalent of that outside of Chicago, and I could not tell you what it was called, but I randomly saw her there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was such like a funny experience because we literally had to walk over to where we could see her on stage because like part of the grounds were just like picnic grounds, and it's like where I was visiting a friend's family and like they had tickets, so we all went. Sure. And I was just hanging out with her family, and I was like, and they're piping obviously the music all around. I think there's like screens in various areas. But I was like, we should go watch Aretha Franklin. Like she's just right over there.
Big deal. I live off the Franklin Ave C stop in Brooklyn, and once after she died, all of the signs that say Franklin that are like kind of lining the subway platform, somebody got a bunch of stickers that say respect and put them all above the Franklin one, like the Franklin word, which is like very cute.
That is touching.
I know. Yeah. They're still there. That's like one thing that hasn't been defaced in that subway station. So
yeah, R.I.P. Aretha.
R.I.P.
Thank you for everything
for the music.
Seriously,
music world, and we're gonna miss you. So that's a couple things that happened in 2018 in our universe. Taylor, what was the song that you want to talk about that got you through the year?
So the song I'm talking about today is called Little Fang. It's by Avey Tare Slasher Flicks. It's like Avey Tare is one of the singers in Animal Collective, or one of the musicians, I guess, like so to speak, in Animal Collective. And he has a bunch of solo projects. This is a project that he did with a couple of other musicians, including some people from the Dirty Projectors.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's
great.
very, yeah.
Yeah, let's listen to a little quick clip of it right now. Oh man, it's so fun.
Right? His voice is so distinctive. Like I can point it out when he's in any kind of other songs.
Yeah.
But I feel like his style, like his personal style, is like so jazzy and kind of like rhythm forward, and he doesn't really get to kind of be that necessarily when he's in the group of Animal Collective.
Right.
But his like solo stuff definitely.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely got like a brighter vibe to it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the whole album is not like that, but definitely that one song is so good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna do our first impressions of the song.
My first impression listening to this, I went, oh, this sounds like Animal Collective. Did not realize that he was part of Animal Collective, so that makes a lot of sense. This falls into a category of music that I need to listen to it several times before I start to like, quote unquote, get it.
Absolutely.
And for this one, it honestly wasn't until I was like on my way here today that I was like, oh, okay, I see. Like it feels motivational. It's kind of fun. It's really, there's like an undercurrent of like spooky vocals.
Totally.
Because it does something, and I think it takes a while for me to get into it because it's like affected vocals.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of vibrato on it, or like just weird effects on it.
Mm-hmm.
But once I started hearing that stuff, I was like, oh, this is weird and fun, and I like it a lot. And also, I saw a live video of this, I think at like Pitchfork Festival, and I realized he was playing like a 12-string guitar for this.
He's so talented.
It's like, yeah, and just watching like his band with like their synthesizers and stuff, I was like, this, I don't understand how they're making these sounds, but I'm enjoying watching them make these sounds.
Totally.
Yeah, my first thought was that this was kind of like the updated version of Montreal. Although like Of Montreal's still around,
They're
obviously.
still making music.
Yeah, but when I was in college, Of Montreal was kind of like peaking, I guess. And there was this whole scene around this kind of like jangly 60s revival indie rock, which like Animal Collective was a part of in many ways. But the poppier, more like what you were saying, like rhythm end of the spectrum, I associate more with Of Montreal than a band like Animal Collective. And this was like kind of like, that was my first thought.
Totally.
And listening to it more, you know, it's you hear more of it again, but it is, the thing I do like about it is it has this kind of like weird, like a cocktail party vibe to it. And I think that's like kind of what was charming about that era of music.
Yeah.
Both back in the 60s, but also the revival of it was everyone's like, oh, this is just sort of fun.
It's fun.
But as you say, especially like the modern versions of it, it's like very interesting to listen to as well. But yeah, why was this a song?
So yeah, kind of what you said. It's. I mean, I unabashedly love Animal Collective. They're my favorite band, and I'm too old for them to be my favorite band, but I am leaning into that. And so kind of whenever they make a solo project, I just like eat it right up. Actually, Avey Tare just released a new album yesterday that I haven't listened to yet, and I will be listening to on the train home. But yeah, so I kind of just eat up anything that they put out. This particular song was like, it's strange to hear an Animal Collective song that you could dance to. Yeah. Because they don't really, they're not really married to consistent time signatures. That's like, you know, kind of their thing. So that was like a fun kind of little deviation from their norm. I think what you said about it being like kind of motivational is like so true, where I just like sometimes was having a bad day and just needed to hear someone be like, here's something special. It's like, oh, thank you, Avey Tare. I really appreciate that. And he's kind of been actually low-key releasing like very empowering to women songs for like the past couple of years that like have kind of gone under the radar because he's Avey Tare. But this one is like, I don't know much of the story behind it, but I made my friend listen to it when I first heard it. And she says it sounds like he's singing to like a daughter. Yeah. Which is like very sweet. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, because like I could be hearing it wrong, but my takeaway was like Little Fang's kind of a nickname.
Like a nickname. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And it's but that's such a good nickname because it's like, this is cute, but also like you are a fierce,
like
or
you're
like terrifying, like you can do damage. And I like love that. It's especially if it is, I don't know if it is to like a daughter or someone. Or,
I hope it is, but if it's not, it's to me, and that's great.
Yeah.
I've always felt a special connection to Avey Tare because his name is Avey Tare because it was Avery and he tore the R out. That's not his actual name. That's just the story behind his name, allegedly. And my middle name is Avery, so we're just very connected. That's cool. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm feeling really down and I listen to the song and it just like peps me right up.
Yeah. And where like the vocals do you get, because part of the vocals goes to like a higher octave.
Yeah.
It's like very glittery. And then there's one bit where it's like pitched down and it gets into this very like
monstery kind of
monstery.
Totally.
And it built this world like of almost creatures that are in there. So
it's so funny you say that because his first, well, it wasn't his first, but his first like giant, like solo album was called Down There, and it was specifically about a swamp. And so I feel like creatures are like very on brand for Avey Tare.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because isn't the music video has like
it's
squirrel
like
puppets or
like,
cat puppets
some
or
kind
something.
Of animal puppet. Yeah, totally.
I mean, you saying that and sort of this imagery of like maybe a child, that does make me think immediately of like Where the Wild Things Are and how there's just this notion that it's scary, but it's like this kid with a little crown that's gonna like
that is just like
conquer it, you know, and he's fine.
Exactly.
Also a little bit of a scary band name.
Avey Tare Slasher Flick. Yeah, totally. Maybe that's, I don't know. I feel like kind of Spooky Yuki is like his brand. Yeah. Well, I keep saying brand and I hate myself for it, but it feels like very like suited for him.
Yeah, that's cool. But I also I like what you were saying too about it being a dancey song.
Yeah.
Because even just before this, we were like trying to find a section of it, and you're like the chorus. And I picked the wrong part because I was like, because the verse is also catchy.
They're
like,
also super catchy.
And like especially for a song sort of like in this general genre, it's like I would have been like, oh, this is for sure the chorus, right? Yeah. And it's like, no, the chorus is even more like poppy and fun.
Do you know what's funny? The next song after this on the album is called Catchy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think he knows.
He knows.
He like gets it.
They flow together really well.
They sure do.
Yeah.
Oh, God, he's so talented. I could talk about him all day. He's like my one celebrity crush, which is like, why? It's like, and it's not because I'm like, oh, he's so hot. I'm like, I just want to talk to you about your talent and like your music all day. Yeah. And like for the rest of our lives, can we get married, please?
So when it comes to music like this or Animal Collective, and what is it about their creative process that you are drawn to?
I think it's just like so totally foreign to me. And like, I couldn't even try to put my finger on like how they do that kind of thing. But I also think that the idea that it's like these 4 or sometimes 3 dudes, it's when we're talking about Animal Collective, like working all together and have been friends for so long. They've been putting out albums since like 1998 or 9. That's just like very appealing to me, especially as somebody who does comedy and like, I co-host this monthly show, and I just co-taught this workshop with my friend and a fellow comedian, Avey Tare, who's also an editor at Reductress. And we have like a very specific chemistry that I don't, and when we're on stage, I feel like this kind of like confidence in my comedy that I don't feel by myself. And so, and when people, like we just taught this workshop and a woman came up to us after and was like, thank you so much for this. Like you guys have like a chemistry when you work together. And it was like the best compliment that I've ever gotten. But anyway, so seeing other people have that and like achieving like great art with that kind of thing is just like speaks to me in a way where I'm like, this is like, you could have done this yourself and you obviously did amazing. He made this album, but I don't know. They're like the fact that they like work together and they're so on the same page, but all doing like wildly different things. Like Geologist is doing like the, like, kind of acoustic, like the, oh my God, what is the word called? He does like drums. He does like the drum kit. And then Deacon's over sometimes doing like some wild shit. And then Panda and Avey are like so tight and have been we're kind of like the original members of this band. Just like watching that kind of dynamic is so, I don't know, reassuring to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it.
You describing it that way also almost makes me think of a group of friends that have been together for a long time, which, as you've said, it's like that is kind of Animal Collective's vibe. But like any good group of friends, like you guys might drift in different directions and have really different lives eventually, but like when you all, I mean, the example I guess for my friends is like when you come home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you just hang out again and everything's kind of like
you just pick
exactly
up where you left off.
As it was, even though like now there's kids there. And
sure.
Now you're in someone's house. Like stuff's different.
Yeah.
And everyone has very different lives, but people are excited about what each other are doing.
Yeah.
They're not like they're not like, why are you doing this? It's like everyone's like on board with everything.
And you're making the same jokes that you made in high school, and you guys like have the same secret like weird words that you guys, you know, like how friend groups have like their own kind of like sayings and like inside jokes and stuff. I just feel like, that's amazing just interpersonally. And I also think it just like makes better art.
Yes.
Like when people are like a sketch show or something where it's just like, hey, it's a bunch of friends who like would do this silly bullshit like on our own time, and now we're just like on stage doing it together. It's like very obvious when it's people who like understand each other and can anticipate what the next person is going to say or like do, or like what their kind of brand of whatever kind of art that they're making is, and like kind of match it and like be there like to compliment it. I don't know. I just think it makes such good art.
Yeah. Because I've seen Evan do improv where there's been a bit that you've done on stage and like, oh, that's just a joke that has happened at home or like with our friends, but now it's in front of this crowd of 40 people.
Totally.
And they don't get it.
Sometimes they don't. There was this show on Adult Swim. Do you guys ever watch Loiter Squad? It was only on for like 2 or 3 seasons, but they gave Odd Future like the whole Future, like a sketch show. And it, of course, it was on like very late, and it was like very Adult Swimmy, where it was like, this is better if you like smoke a little weed and like just kind of let any expectations go and just like watch this. And it's like, I thought it was very funny because it just came out like I just graduated high school and I was like in college and we were doing drugs and we were like, this is like the silliest shit ever. But it's also rewatching it as like later, like with fresh eyes. It's like they just let these friends just like do what they're already doing on a TV channel, like a show. Same with like Tim and Eric. It's like those are just homies who like took their weird brand of comedy and like brought it to the masses. And that's why some people are like, I don't fucking get that show. Like it makes no sense. But they get it. And the people who do get it are like, they weren't writing it for anyone but themselves, you know? And if you like it, then like cool. And if you don't, then like it wasn't for you.
For sure. Yeah, I think a subset of my high school friends, but then like primarily my college friends, for us, that was watching Stella shorts, which seemed like 3 guys who low production value, but like they were just making this stuff and I think that was like a little bit of actually, I was probably too young to be totally honest, because I've watched it in retrospect and I was like, oh, but then watching The State, it didn't quite feel as like tight, but it's like just a bigger group of friends. But I think that also speaks to the fact that it's like these things are so fun to watch and so cool and unique. They feel so unique because it is hard to take what is like a great interpersonal dynamic and also then make good art with it without like people disagreeing at a certain there's like a certain point where they're going to start to disagree or have egos or like the things fall apart.
Absolutely.
You know? And to be able to see a group of people that get make something cool, even if it's not like for you, even if you don't totally get it, it's just such a nice thing to like witness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and having friends or collaborators that you can trust to be silly in front of or make odd or different choices. It's nice to like have that support system where you can fail and you will, and that's fine. Because sometimes you get really interesting things out of that. And sometimes those interesting things are bad sketch videos that you put on YouTube and send out to Reddit and have people reply and get very mad at you.
Pat, that sounds personal.
Never done that. But you learn from it, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, well, and speaking of, this also reminded me that with my group of friends at home, we kind of, I think a lot of us started to be friends because we played music in high school.
Sure.
And we were like in the 2 bands that were in our grade sort of thing. And a subset of those guys have gone on to like do music since then, right? And in many ways, they've like been combinations of each other in different bands. They've worked together. And through it all, one of the experiences I think a lot of us talk about being like the most fun of all those years was one summer from college. We just like formed a collective, but we basically recorded an album as a loose group of like 8 people or 9 people, where not everyone played on like some people wrote songs, some people didn't, some people played an instrument on one track and not another, and like all this stuff. And it just went down as like one of the most fun experiences we had. And we all like enjoyed the music and enjoyed the experience.
Absolutely.
And it was probably the one time in the like this group of friends' history that we like weren't a band trying to do something.
Yeah, you were just like friends making music.
Yeah, and it was like truly no stakes. There was no goal to begin with. We just ended up making something, and it's like, oh yeah, that fucking ruled.
That's so amazing. Quick question: were you the polyphonic spree? Be honest.
Yeah, I wish. I
okay,
wish.
Okay, fair enough.
I wish we had robes.
Oh, they were so fun. I saw Polyphonic Spree when I was in high school.
I bet that was so cool.
It was bizarre.
I'm sure.
It's the first concert I ever went to that somebody's older sister like bought us beer.
That's such an exciting like moment.
Yeah, it was definitely a moment where like I was kind of hiding it because I was like, people are gonna see I don't have a wristband on. Nobody cares.
No one cared.
I think it was about the time that Annie Clark had been in Polyphonic Spree. I have no way to confirm if I saw her as part of that band.
Sure.
But all I remember is leaving that show with like the biggest smile on my face and considering buying a robe that they were selling at the merch table. So I was like supremely indoctrinated by the end of that show.
That's so funny. I see of Montreal every single year. They just have not stopped touring. They come through Brooklyn every single. Sometimes I see them twice a year because they're just here all the time. April 12th is the next one, by the way. They're playing elsewhere.
Okay,
nice.
Good to know.
Yeah, and similar. I remember the first time I saw them, and it was like, whoa! Especially because the first time I saw them, it was like right after Hissing Fauna, which was like obviously a masterpiece and like a huge deal. And then unfortunately, I saw the documentary, and that Kevin dude is not a great father.
Oh,
unfortunately. But he does make good music.
Yes.
And there are musicians who have done worse than be a bad dad.
For sure.
But yeah, I know that feeling where it's just like, you like transcend, you know? Which sounds very corny, but.
I think the only time I've seen of Montreal, it's just like, they were in a big enough venue to have like some big ass puppets and like really cool stuff.
They still do that.
Yeah, and it ruled. And it was also at a odd time in history where Janelle Monáe was opening for them.
That is very strange.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because she was just like, I think she just had one EP out or something like that. And it was a thing where in retrospect, I think we can like see why musically they go together.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But at the time, I think the audience was very like arms full. Like people got into it eventually, but it was kind of like, who's this? Like I think people just like assumed like, who's this R&B artist? Out here opening for Montreal. But then of course she like rocked everyone's socks off. And
I feel like I didn't actually see it in person, but I saw like footage of a live show that Montreal did, and Solange was there, and it was like kind of recent, but. Maybe, I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm trying to think of
different
who it
energies.
Was. Yeah, totally.
Different
but
energies.
Like, I think this was before she was like putting out these albums that were like incredible.
Right.
But I guess they're like just homies with everyone.
Sure.
That's cool.
I mean, that seems nice.
Yeah. They seem like cool bands to tour with. I couldn't name any other person in that band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's okay.
So how did you end up going down the road of comedy?
So I started doing stand-up. Well, let's back up a little bit. Black people are born funny. That's just like something that we are blessed with at birth.
Sure, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to deal with the hardships of life. And so God just blessed us with an incredible sense of humor, all of us. But I started doing stand-up in college. We had like an on-campus pub that I used to just go do some at. And after I graduated, I moved to New York fully thinking that I was going to be either an actress or a filmmaker. That's what I went to school for. And then it turns out that being an actress is not just like walking around New York City and hoping somebody like notices you and your immediate talent. You have to like put the work in to like go to auditions and stuff. And I simply couldn't afford to like not have a job and go to auditions all the time. So that didn't really work. The filmmaking thing was also like my parents aren't rich, so I don't really have the time to like. Anyway, there were many reasons why it didn't work out. And so I was like, writing is something that I could probably do without an incredible amount of money in the bank. And also realized that I could write my own films and write my own, write things that I could act in. And that was like my way of doing it. And I kind of just always have leaned into like more comedic writing than dramatic writing necessarily. So I got, a couple of summers ago, summer of 2017, I had an internship at Reductress and worked there all summer. And it's a really small company. There's only 4 of us that work there. But it turns out that right at the end of my internship, there were 2 people who worked there who both got hired to write on a late night show at the same time. And so 2 spots opened up. So they hired me and my other co-editor, Ava. And so we worked as staff writers there for a while. We got promoted to editors last May, so it's been almost a year of that.
Cool.
Yeah, and so, but because of that, we book a monthly show, and people I book on the monthly show, because it's like a show that people want to be on, in turn kind of book me on their shows. And so I kind of got to skip the whole going to open mics thing, which is a blessing and a curse. And so, yeah, now I'm doing stand-up like a couple of nights a week, in addition to like, there have been a bunch of other comedy publications that have reached out to me because they've seen my work through Reductress. And so now I have pieces of the New Yorker, and I write a weekly column for Vulture mag. So yeah, it's been kind of like getting my internship at Reductress was like my kind of big break into things. But yeah, I think the key is just making sure that you're always doing something.
Yeah.
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 Because it's easy to want to do stand-up and avoid doing open mics. And you have to go. Like, I still go to open mics, even though I miss the phase of having to go to open mics to get like noticed by people, but I still go to open mics to like work on new material and stuff. Yeah. And it's incredibly disheartening sometimes, obviously, just like being on stage and like doing comedy is. But it's my passion.
Yeah.
So I do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're both huge fans of Reductress. And I imagine that's got to be such a super special thing to be kind of like at the helm of such a great place. It
does feel good. It feels extra good when, I guess I kind of don't see, I love Reductress because I'm like a comedy nerd and I've like known about it for like a really long time. But I guess I don't see like random people on the street and assume that they know what Reductress is. So whenever someone is like, when I'm on a date or like when I'm like talking to a person at a bar or like meeting a new friend, it's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an editor of this company called Reductress. And like, I go to explain what we are. And they're like, oh my God, no, I love Reductress. That's such a cool, like such a big deal. That feels good. I'm like, oh my God, like our writing is like reaching somebody. Or when people send me messages that are like, this is, especially the stuff I write that's like about race, I guess. I get a lot of Black Twitter. If Black Twitter likes something that I write about blackness on Reductress, that's when I know I've like written a good article, because they are brutal.
You've nailed it.
Exactly. If they like, and by they I mean we are brutal. I am Black Twitter, I guess. I sometimes forget about that.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny because I think earlier we were talking about like you were saying something about looking at music and musicians and like, oh, how do they do that? It seems crazy that these things exist, but I think a lot of people think that of comedians as well. And I don't know if you like run into muggles who like ask you that, and they're civilians, but it really is. They're like, how did you even come up with that idea? And I don't know. Like I'm not even really asking that question because I think it's sort of like a weird question to ask.
Sure.
Because most of us are like, right, we pull from our lives. Yeah. But then it's like we're trying to make something that will like also make a random person this is not their life.
Sure.
We want them to laugh.
Relatable. Exactly.
Right.
But at the same time, in the same way, it's like, sure, Animal Collective made that really poppy album, Merryweather Post Pavilion. I'm not hating on it. It was a good album. Every song was brilliant, but it was like a crowd grab. It was like a way to get more people who wouldn't necessarily listen to their weirder stuff to like listen to them. And I think in the same way that it's like you can make art for yourself and then you can deviate from that slightly and like actively take a step to make art that is like more relatable to people so that you can go back to making art for yourself but with a bigger audience. And I think it's important to do both, because if you just sit at comedy clubs and tell jokes about like your shitty wife or like at open mics all the time, you're not going to get any bigger than that, because it's not really, you're not doing comedy because like you love comedy, you're doing comedy because like you need an outlet, which is like you can do both. But also, I don't know, I think that sometimes I see musicians, or I have like musician friends, and I feel the same way where I'm just like, it's such a foreign thing to me, like to just sit down and like write lyrics to a song or like pick up a guitar and like make up a tune. And I think some people just like have it in them, like pick up a guitar and like feel a certain thing. And I imagine it must be similar to like what I feel when I get on stage and tell a joke, where I talk to friends and they're like, I have no idea how you do that. And I'm like, I don't have any idea how I do it either. I just like, it feels very natural to me and I feel very in my element. I never feel more in my element than when I'm like telling jokes on stage and people are laughing. And I imagine musicians feel the same.
Yeah. I don't think this is a one or the other type of thing, but if you can follow, it's like, do you feel more like in those moments that you're like the most you, like you are the thing that is like coming out? Or do you feel a part of like a flow that is outside of you that is You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes both. For instance, like when I'm on stage with Ava, like I was talking about, it's definitely like there's a dynamic there. If we're doing a bit, it's like jokes that we thought about beforehand, but also because we have just like this kind of chemistry with each other, it's like very much so jokes can just come naturally from like what we're doing on stage. And I sometimes think those are the funniest jokes, the ones that just happen like that aren't like premeditated, if you will. But also I was going to say, and then here's the other side of it when I'm by myself on stage, but that's also not totally true because you can be on stage. And like one time I was on stage and the sound guy accidentally started playing like a song in like the middle of my set. And that turned into like a whole bit, which wouldn't have happened. I obviously couldn't have come up with that on my own and like known that would have happened or even planned it. Or sometimes there's like a heckler in the audience or someone's like way too drunk and they're like being really loud and like that can become a bit, or something has just happened in like the news that you can get up on stage and talk about. And so I think it's, like you said, it's definitely not one or the other. It's like, sometimes I draw for myself and sometimes I'm just like going with the flow of like what's around me.
Yeah. Well, I think in a similar sense, like going and looking at this song, there's a lot of it that I was sitting there listening going, why that choice?
Yeah.
How did you get to the point where this is the song that you're making?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is probably some level of, we've been putting out music and practicing and we have the things that we like. And then there might be that moment of just outside influence where they, I don't know, hit the wrong button. And go, that sounds cool.
It happens so many times. I bet there's like so many stories about that. I watched a video about the creation of the song Atomic Dog by P-Funk. Yeah. And I mean, literally it was just like, what's that guy's name?
George Clinton.
Yeah, like did some crack and thought of like a funny phrase. It was like, "Why does the dog chase the cat?" And he was like, "Oh, actually, like." And then they just got in the studio and started making it. And it's like this song wouldn't have been a thing if you didn't have this like drug thought, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, so I feel like a lot of art and like inventions and like other things have like come out from just like an accident, basically.
Yeah.
Or like a happenstance.
It's why, right? Like a lot of artists they tell you to like, you just need time to idle. Like you need time to experiment, to kind of like dick around.
Absolutely.
For lack of anything better. That's like kind of why I think for musicians especially, it's like such a luxury to have studio time because the more time you can be there, the more it's like, obviously some people probably go down the rabbit hole in like a bad way where they're just like put synths on everything and you're like, come on man, like you're a rock band, like let's just, but at the other time it's like when people have spent the time already mastering their craft and like already being great at something, it's like those become tools, not, like deterrents or distractions.
Absolutely. And also just going back to what you said before, sometimes I listen to any song, but specifically an Animal Collective song, and it's just like, I imagine it if there was like, there's like a weird sound effect going on in the background, right? Maybe not even musical, just like a noise. They like love that. And I imagine how the song would sound without that. And it just like wouldn't feel complete. And I'm like, how did you know it needed this? How did you know like this like animal noise that you've distorted and like run backwards like a million times? How did you know like it specifically needed this? And that's another thing where I think it's just like, they just know. There's no explaining it. Like you just know.
Yeah. I think from like, music or even writing perspective, for me at least, there are moments where you look at work of somebody you admire and get completely overwhelmed at the fact that they made this and how would I ever make something similar?
Absolutely.
But to think about it as, well, there's building blocks. We've taken the time to build this out, or something like that with that animal sound.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, I don't know, let's put it in there, see how it goes.
Yeah, totally.
And there's no such thing as perfection. So I wonder how often, like even Animal Collective put together a song and just go, we just need to get it out the door.
Yeah, this is
give it its own life.
And I'm like, oh my God, I love this.
Yeah.
I feel, this is like a little bit of a tangent, sorry, but I love to cook. So I feel the same way about cooking, where sometimes I'm like making a sauce or making something and I'm like, what does this need? And I'm like, oh, a little bit of acid. Like I can throw some vinegar in this or like some lemon juice in this and it's, really round out this flavor. And I only know that because I've just been cooking for so long, and I like know how to, I know like what spices go together and like what doesn't work and like what kind of fish you should use with this sauce or what kind of wine you should use in this sauce and like that kind of thing. But I didn't always, And so I'm sometimes looking back on like the food that I used to think was like good that I cooked for myself like in college or like in high school. It's like, oh, now I have all this knowledge because I've been doing it for so long that I wish I could go back and just be like, don't eat this, like make this better.
Yeah, the next path I would like to go down is understanding what wines pair with what foods. Because recently I bought a cheaper box of wine and should not have done that because when I drank my wine after the ice cream I was eating, it tasted like metal. So
Interesting. Was it red wine?
It was red wine.
Yep, that'll do it. They're very metallic red wines. I'm more of a white wine person because I'm more of a seafood person. I don't eat meat, I eat seafood. And so white wines go with seafood. That's a fun thing. Red wines go with beef.
Yeah, it's probably also my fault for pairing red wine with caramel ice cream. So
yeah, but also sometimes you gotta
caramel, dark caramel.
I would say caramel and red wine.
Yeah, but it depends if it's like a lighter caramel flavor, more sugary than smoke, like dark kind of molassy.
I think your main problem was the boxed wine.
No, that was don't skimp on that because this tasted like they had put like synthetic smoke into it.
Oh, gross.
There's a lot of issues happening here.
Yeah.
And you know what? I experimented. I learned.
And you learned. And you survived. And that's important. Some of our ancestors experimented and did not survive.
That's true.
They were like, these mushrooms could be could be delicious.
There are a lot of fucking berries out there in the world.
Yeah, right. And we know which ones not to eat. Thanks to our brave ancestors. Salute them.
Thank you for your service.
I learned a fun wine fact yesterday that I do want to share with our listeners. And that is, if you were cooking something that is like specific to like a region or a country, then you should use a wine produced in that region or country if the recipe calls for it, because it'll taste like it's supposed to taste.
Yeah.
Like, because people in France weren't cooking with Italian wines; they were cooking with French wine. So, I mean, you can cook with Italian wine or a French wine for a French dish, and it'll taste like the wine will be in there, but it's not how it is authentically supposed to taste. But that, of course, requires a lot of money and wine knowledge that I simply do not have.
That is such a common sense, but I would
you wouldn't think
almost always overlooked.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I read it. I was reading an article about this like very specific Swedish or Swiss food, and they brought that up, and I was like, oh my God.
Where the fuck am I going to get a Swiss wine right now?
They actually said in the article, they were like, Swiss wines are like really rare and expensive, so we're just using an Italian wine. And I was like, so why did you even tell me that?
To make you feel bad.
Yeah. Make me feel poor.
Yeah, exactly. Would you share one setback from the past year with us?
Setback. Let's see. I think that I'm having to get used to getting rejected like professionally. Which I guess I'm trying to look on the bright side of, because getting rejected means that more publications are reaching out to me and I'm like able to pitch like writing to more publications. But it's always difficult to be like, wow, I wrote this masterpiece. I'm so proud of it. I can't wait for it to run and people to see it. And for the editor to be like, yeah, sorry, it's just not a fit. And it's also like lots of places that you pitch, you have to write the whole article and then send it to them, and then they're like, yeah, we don't want this. As opposed to like at Reductress, we write a headline and our editors are like, yeah, we want this or we don't, and then we write the article. So it's hard to like put hours of work into something and then someone would be like, no, this is shit, sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess like a lot of rejection professionally.
Yeah.
And that's been a bummer.
Sure. What about like a step forward of the past year?
Well, I got promoted.
Congratulations.
So that was good. I had my first general meeting this week, which was also cool. So yeah, I just feel like I'm moving forward in my career very slowly, which is not in my nature. I'm like incredibly impatient, but maybe that's the plus, is that I'm learning to be patient and like deal with rejection. There's a silver lining.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing your year with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Where can people see you and or keep up to date with you?
So I'm on Twitter at Casual Afro, or on Instagram at Taylor Garron. On Twitter way more. I have a couple of shows coming up. There's one, I guess it won't make sense if you're.
This will come out, probably like end of April.
Oh, okay. Well, I host Reductress's monthly comedy show. We have one once a month, called Ha Ha Wow. The one in May is on my literal birthday. So y'all should come. It's gonna
Happy
be great.
birthday.
Thank you. I'm gonna be 27, which is like, either gonna die this year or I gotta live forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Congrats.
So I'm like, here's
Remains
hoping.
to be seen.
Fingers crossed.
Exactly. We'll see.
Do your friends have any betting pools on you or anything?
I don't think so. I have very positive friends.
Great.
I'm like the most depressed out of all of my friends. So, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Read my writing all over the internet.
Yes. Read her writing everywhere. You can keep up to date with us at Repeater Show on Instagram and Twitter, and also repeater.show, which is our website where we put everything. You can find me at eblarden on both of those social network platforms. They're so fun.
You are so fun on those platforms.
I meant the platforms. I don't know about me, but
yeah, platforms are fun. I'm at
now thank you.
I'm at Pat Cartelli on most of the platforms, all of the platforms. Find me on platforms I'm not on.
Yeah.
There's so many platforms.
There's a lot of platforms. There's only going to be more as time goes on.
I predict that.
The only one I'm not Pat Cartelli on is Pinterest. Somebody else took that from me.
Wow.
Damn, that fucking sucks, dude.
I know. So if you want to find me on Pinterest, Patrick Cartelli.
Yeah. And we really appreciate anyone listening to this show. It means a lot to us that you would tune in, spend your time with us. It would also mean such a great amount if you could rate and review the show, which is a thing every podcast is going to ask you to do. But we are a small but mighty little podcast, and it would really help us out. In fact, if you give us a 5-star rating, we're going to read it on the pod.
Whoa.
So
that's an honor.
You could write pretty much whatever you want, assuming it's not hateful or terrible. But give us a fun recommendation. Tell us a little story. Spin some yarn on there if you want to. But if it's a 5-star rating, we're gonna read it, and I think that's cool.
It is cool.
Yeah. So please have at it. We appreciate you listening already, but that would be even more appreciated.
And while you're at it, just tell a friend, somebody that likes comedy, somebody that likes music.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
You're talking about that's how you get to skip the open mic stage.
Yeah.
It's the real life algorithm.
It truly is.
We go straight to whatever podcast empire Amazon's probably building right now.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
For sure.
Yeah.
But Taylor, thank you so much for joining us again.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Everyone,
Every time.
Thank you.
Yes. Everyone out there, please thank you so much for listening. And until next time,
hit repeat.
Repeater is hosted by Evan Ford Barden and Patrick Cartelli. This episode was recorded at Magnet Training Center in New York City, where they offer classes in improv, musical improv, sketch writing, storytelling, and more. Find out more at magnettheater.com. Visit us online at repeater.show for live dates, hot music tips, and show archives. Theme music by the Sun Lions. Everything else by Love Nest Productions. Welcome to Repeater.
Friend just got a puppy and he wakes him up every morning by just sitting on his face. Just plopping his whole butt right on his face.